All right, welcome to another episode of The Catholic Couple Having Fun with Faith, Family, and Friends. I'm your co-host, Bobby Fredrickson, and tonight my wife is not here, so you're going to be stuck with just me. And today, though, we have a special guest who's joining the podcast and the video. It's TJ from Follow My Camino. You can find him on Instagram, and he's got a website. We'll get through all that. And I've been interested in the Camino for a long time. I first heard about it when I'm a convert to the faith. So 15 years ago, I heard about it through Matthew Kelly talking about how it changed his life. And I'm like, what is the Camino? And so this is a great opportunity to dive deeper into, the history about it. What is it? Why do people do it? And things like that. So before we get started, just kind of maybe TJ, introduce yourself, maybe your background, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, so TJ Bogan, and so I started Follow My Camino. I too am a convert, so that's awesome. And so yeah, the Camino is definitely transformative and spiritual. And so we're trying to get people to go on the Camino. I got a full-time job, so this is a side thing that we do, and we're just really happy to be able to have a good ministry that will bring people on the way to St. James. So yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. So what's the typical length or amount of time? I know it can vary from the different routes and things like that. What's the standard amount of time that you need to take a Camino?
Yeah, so the standard in terms of the full Camino, which is where you start in St. John in France, you need about 30 days to do the whole Camino. It's 800 kilometers, about 500 miles. And most people can't get off work for that. We work a full-time job, and we're not quite, retired. And so we do them in 2-week stints, 1-week stints. We do have the full Camino next year in 2025 and 26, but mainly we've just been doing it in 2-week intervals. And so the average can be anywhere between 315 kilometers, which is roughly 200 and some odd miles, all the way down to you can do a week and walk about 80 miles. So we offer everything, both the Camino Frances, the Del Norte, which is the north part of Spain, and then the Portugal, which is on the west coast of Spain.
Awesome. Well, give the listeners and the viewers, what is the Camino and any kind of history about it.
Yeah.
So if no one's ever heard about it, what is it, and why should we think about doing it?
Yeah, so the Camino is the way of St. James. So obviously, St. James, one of the big three, right? Jesus is three amigos, and so he went out to Spain and to go ministry, right? So when Jesus said, pick up your cross and go and worship, that's what St. James did, and so he went all the way across spreading Christianity. And then it was when he was called back into Rome, then he was beheaded, and then his bones were then carried back over to Spain into Santiago by two monks. And so the Santiago, the cathedral, was erected, I think, around 1100, was the papal seal. And so really it's, we're paying homage to St. James and for all of the love that he had of Jesus and to spread the gospel. I've got a couple of notes here. Is one of the things is that Pope Alexander, I think it was the sixth, declared the Camino as one of the three great pilgrimages you can do. One is to Rome, one is to Jerusalem, and then one is to Santiago. So that kind of just tells you, where it fell in terms of its importance. We walk it as a pilgrimage. We walk it as a spiritual pilgrimage for us, especially for the Catholics, because a lot of the saints have walked on the Camino. Saint Francis has walked on it. There's a church right there in Santiago. The Franciscan friars are there, so it really is a humbling experience and a very spiritual experience. And it's different than just being a tour, right? We're not going on. We're really trying to walk something that it really is deep rooted into our faith, into our Christianity. So that's kind of how we look at it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, thanks for sharing. Yeah, it's interesting because it's like a lot of times we're like tourists. We want to go to places, and you drive from one place to another, but people don't really think of like, hey, I'm going to go on a pilgrimage. Like I'm going to, with the intent of, the spiritual journey that we're taking. And that's the thing about our faith is it's a journey. And what a better
Or
way to enter into that journey than literally walking the steps of one of the inner circle, one of the 12, and to follow in the footsteps. As we're called to deny ourselves, carry our cross, and we
Yep.
can really take these opportunities to to really grow closer to the Lord. We have a smaller one. Actually, it's this weekend. I go to daily mass at a Carmelite monastery, and there's a group of Salvatorians. They're all Polish, and they come from the city of Chicago. And then halfway is in Munster, Indiana, where I go to daily mass, and then they walk all the way to Maryville. But it's a whole weekend, and they close down
Yeah.
the streets. They walk from Chicago, and then the halfway point, they all camp out. They got beautiful grounds at the monastery. The bishop comes. They all stay the night in tents on the ground, and then in the morning they get up and then they walk on another 20, 30 miles. So it's just beautiful to see. I always just show up at I don't do the pilgrimage. I just show up at the mass. It's outside and it's just so beautiful. There's like thousands of people jammed on top of each other, just loving on each other. And to see this culture of the pilgrimage, that these people, young, old, who are, you know, walking with the Lord in a different way that's intentional versus like, yeah, we take it for granted. We have cars, we
Right.
have planes. It's easy to go
Yeah.
somewhere. But when was the last time that somebody, like for me, like walked somewhere far? Like I've been
Yeah.
intentionally in my rehab, I've been like walking 30 minutes, 40 minutes a day just to get back into it. But a lot of people just don't like go for a walk and just like
No,
pray as
no.
they walk. Like a lot of people don't do that anymore. So it's a good way to remind ourselves to get back to the earth, as they say, is that these pilgrimages is a great way to connect us back to reality, because so much of our lives is this virtual world that we're living in, and we don't get enough time to spend in the sun, out in God's beautiful creation, especially moving our bodies and walking with other people who are on this journey too. So tell me, how did you get involved in your first Camino? Because I'm sure you went on one at some point, and then you were
Yeah.
moved by it,
Yeah.
and then you want to share the experience that you had. That's usually how things work. Was that
Yeah.
similar to how it happened?
Oh yeah, of course, of course. But let me go back. So the walk that you're doing this weekend, I actually have a friend of mine who's walking that from our church here in Lafayette, West Lafayette, at Purdue, and
Okay.
she'll be up in northern Indiana, and then and so we also have the Assumption pilgrimage this weekend as well. And so that starts on Friday, and we have a group of people that will walk that as well. And that really is a great place for us to talk about the Camino, and to show people and to talk about what is the Camino. And it really is transformative, like I said. And I think that, going back to the latter part of your question there, is that when I saw the movie The Way back in 2012, whatever it was, I was just moved by the movie. And I was like, I really want to do this walk. And a buddy of mine, who's part of the Follow My Camino, he is a youth pastor, Jeff Minjan, and we were, working with the youth, and we were showing this video. And I looked at him and I was like, dude, we got to do this. And it wasn't until years later that I was able to do it. And so here we are together, he and I, going through this together, and helping people come to Santiago through the way of St. James. But the movie really was like awe inspiring, right? And I think for a lot of people that was it. But it really wasn't until I went on the Camino, and I walked by myself and met tons of people, was able to go to daily mass. And really just was able to experience what it would be like, right, to just walk and talk with Jesus every single day. And we always do that. We might be driving, we might be sitting around doing something, for that moment, that small moment. But when you are walking 8 hours a day, and you can just pray all day long, and you can ask for forgiveness for whatever it is, and you can just leave everything at the crosses and at the churches, it is very spiritual. It is very transformative in terms of wanting to grow deeper in our faith, and just our love for Jesus Christ, right? And so I just think that was kind of it. So, just to tell a story, is I was walking, and there was a pilgrim group, sorry, a Polish group that was walking along the Camino, and I kept seeing them every single day, and they were doing mass because they had a priest with them, and he was doing mass. And the lady came up to me and she said, I walked the Camino like 5 years ago. And there used to be a lot more Americans walking it that would go to mass. And she's like, you're the only American that I've seen go to mass with us. And again, it was not that there wasn't a lot of Americans on the Camino. It was just that there wasn't a lot of people attending mass, and that was really sad to see and to hear. So when I got back, I was like, I really want to make this Camino something for everyone to experience, because it was so transformative for me. It really was just gut wrenching back to the core of following Christ, and just trying to be a better person through everything that we go through, right? Work and family and whatever. Um, And so that's when we really started the Follow My Camino. It was to be able to get people to go that normally would never go by themselves. And that's really where we have found the fruit of our labors, is that there's a lot of people who won't go by themselves because they're scared or whatnot. But to go as a group is another great thing that we do. So yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, but I mean, I help lead a couple different small groups. I have a men's group where we meet, we work out, and we do things
Oh, that's
together.
awesome.
It's nice to have that strength, the iron sharpens iron, and
Yeah.
it's there to
Yeah.
help each other. I'm sure people get tired, and we have those things, but when you have it to walk with someone on that journey, it just makes it easier. And the
Oh
same
yeah.
with, like, with my spouse, Katie, or
Yeah.
whoever, as a convert for my wife and I, it was like we were the youngest people in our parish. Like, we didn't have anybody to walk with. It was like, we had friends, we liked them, and we did stuff with
Yeah.
them, but it
Of
just
course.
wasn't the same. It wasn't anybody
It
who was
wasn't the same.
active, or wasn't trying. It wasn't the same. So at our parish now, where my wife's the principal, it's like we formed these groups, and now we're similar ages. We have our kids are in the same classes, and we're all trying to follow after the Lord. So it really does make a big difference to have someone to walk on this journey with. And now, actually physically walking with people
Oh
on
yeah.
this journey, it has to be life changing, especially with a friend that you go there with. So somebody that goes on the Camino, I've heard like stories of, like, people just, like, they know that you're a pilgrim, and there's, like, the shell that you wear or whatever, that people can recognize you, that you're on the Camino. What are some things that that you would like them to know about it, that's maybe some misconceptions, or something that they should know about, something awesome about it? Like, for me, I was always like, I like the spontaneity of it. I'm sure there
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
obviously a setup, routes and places you stay and things like that, but there's you can walk the same path. It's always going to be different. That's
It's
that
always
that's
different. It's always different. And a lot of people ask me, like, well, the one thing that people say is that I'm not physically fit to do it. And I would disagree with that. We had an 87-year-old lady walk with us last year. I had a 78-year-old and a 70-year-old, all the way down to a 21-year-old. And everybody's walking together. And I describe it as the accordion. Some people are going to walk faster, some are going to walk slower, but we all come together, and then we might separate, and then we all come together. And it's those moments where we're walking separately, but also walking together, that we just grow, right? We grow personally, we grow in our faith. We've got one person who just went on the last trip with us, and now he's thinking about joining the Catholic faith because he's obviously not Catholic. And so we have kind of just a mesh. But one of the biggest things is a misconception is that I'm not physically able to do it. It's too hard. And I tell people, if you can walk 3 miles in your neighborhood, which, everybody's looking at their watch and trying to get their 10,000 steps in a day, that's like the new thing, which is great. So if you can walk 3 to 5 miles a day around your neighborhood, and you're not overly tired or overly sore, after doing it for a while, not just going out and doing it once, but, continuously doing it. If you're able to do that, then you can walk a Camino. There's a lot of starting and stopping along the way. We don't just walk 20 miles a day with no stopping, because there's churches to see, there's people to talk to, there's great Spanish food to eat, right? There's just God's green earth to look at and to take pictures. I mean, one of the things that we did is the sun was setting, and somebody got the great idea is to turn sideways and then put the palm of your hand, and it makes it look like the sun is setting. And there was this palm tree. Out of every other tree there was like a palm tree there. And so everybody wanted to take a picture of them having the sun in their hand with the palm tree. It's just those little tiny moments that add up day in and day out, that make it so that anybody can go. They really can. And so that's probably the one misconception, is that they're not physically fit. The other thing is that the terrain is too much, or it's not safe. That's a lot of comments that I get, especially people who they're going to walk it alone. They're always worried about safety. These trails are so well marked, especially even out in the very rural area. They are very well marked with the way markers. That has the shell and the arrow, the Buen Camino arrow, and they're very well marked, so that even if you got lost, you could find your way. You could go back to where you were, find the arrow that you missed. I've had to do it, got to go back to, because we missed an arrow and we read it the wrong direction. And that's the fun part about it, right? I mean, too much do people get caught up in, like, well, what app do I need to download? There are lots of apps that are out there that people like to use, and there's nothing wrong with them. We just don't use the apps. There's no need. These trails are so well marked, and we're, as a group, or even as a smaller group, we've had different size groups. We're all together, and everybody's looking and figuring out where we're going. And if there's a problem with missing a way marker, well, we go back a little bit, and then we figure out where we got to go. So I think those are some of the misconceptions. And the other thing is, a misconception is you need to bring a lot with you. You are walking every day to get to Santiago, to go see the tomb of St. James. You do not need to carry your entire tourist suitcase with you. We go with 3 changes of clothes in a bag, and we try to keep our backpacks very light. The lighter it is, the better it is. Not because it's lighter and it's less weight on your shoulders, because you just don't need a lot. You need the bare essentials. And that's another misconception, is that people are like, well, I need to bring all this gear, and I need a sleeping bag and a tent. You don't need any of that. Everything is so well marked and so well organized on the Camino. It just makes it's just a very nurturing experience.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I think that's part of it too, is like to get rid of the technology. That's
Oh
like a
yeah,
detox. I know for me,
leave it all
doing
behind.
doing all the all the social media stuff I do for the page and the podcast.
Oh,
It's
of
like
course.
you can really get a hold of you. It's like that's part of what a pilgrimage is. It's
Yeah.
to to detach from those things that are controlling us. And for me, I'm actually leading a retreat with this men's group that I help lead. Is that we're reading? Have you ever read the book Wild at Heart by John
Yes.
Eldridge? Yeah, and
Oh, great
that's
book.
what, especially for men, is that
Oh yeah.
that's what's missing within the church, is that adventure to go on. Like we don't
Go on.
have a great war, at least not yet. We
Pick up
don't
your
have
cross and go. Yeah.
yeah, we don't have like this adventure. This like it's like get up, go to work. Yeah, we have our kids games, and we're doing those things, but
Very routine. Very
there's
routine.
something within us that's calling out to something greater. And if we don't get that, we start to slowly die to our, die inside, because we, as men, we have these hopes and these dreams and these adventures, and we watch all these movies that are, inspiring, and like we have that within us that we want to have an adventure. So what a better way to do something that's not so predictable, where it's going to also challenge you. I mean, that's part of it as well, that we
Oh
also want
yeah.
to be challenged. But like you're saying, it's not that hard. What's the average amount of, say you do the 2 week Camino? That would be you said 200 miles
350
total.
kilometers. Yeah. So like over 200 miles. So that there's different routes to do that in, but the main one would be starting on the Camino Frances, which is a town called Leon. And we're actually doing that this September. And people are still signing up for that because there's still plenty of time to sign up. And we will average about 15 miles a day. And, we'll start early in the morning, get a little bit of nourishment and get out the door, say a couple prayers, and then we walk. We will do, the rosaries together. We'll do the Divine Mercy Chaplet. We set aside a time during the walk where we're just silent. Even if you're walking next to someone, you're trying to be as silent as you can before we do the Divine Mercy Chaplet. We will stop at every church, even if it's just to say a prayer. Or to go to mass in the evening, if there's mass available. They have the same problem we have in the States with, lack of priests, and the priests being scattered across all of the regions. And so there's definitely, an issue with not always having a mass at a church, but we will make it as spiritual as we can, and do some other spiritual exercises along the way. So yeah, but the average is 15 miles. You can walk a little bit longer, but after 15 miles, it's a good day's walk. It's 7, 8 hours. You're stopping, you're going, you're having great food. You get into the place you're going to stay. You drop your bag. We all go to dinner. And before you know it, everybody's like, okay, I'm ready to go to bed. You wake up in the morning and do it all over again. And each day is just a different location, a different terrain, different things you're going to see. And even when I've gone back and walked many of the same caminos that I've walked before, you just find something new in every single one of them. I'm like, oh, I remember this, but I don't remember that. Or I remember this, but it's changed a little bit, or it looks different to me now. And I'm just looking at it with fresh eyes, maybe. So that's a joy of walking the Camino multiple times, is it's always an eye-opening experience.
That's awesome. So where do you normally like fly into? Usually you do the France route and then come in through that way.
Yeah, so this year we've done all 3 routes, the main 3 routes. So we did the north route, the central route, and the Portugal route. If like for this one here, we'll fly into Madrid, we'll take a train into Leon, and then we'll start walking, and then we end in Santiago, and then we fly home. When we do the Portugal route, we like to add on Fatima. So
Yeah.
next year we have the Portugal route. We'll go to Fatima for 3 days, and then we'll go to the starting point, and then we'll walk up. We've also got next year we're going to
That's a
Lourdes.
2 week one too.
That's a 2 week one. Yep.
That's a
And
2 week.
then
Okay.
next year we have a Lourdes 2 week. We're going to go to Lourdes for 3 days. We'll walk to Papilloma. We're going to spend a day of the Running with the Bulls in July of
Oh,
next
wow.
year. And then we'll continue to walk to Burgos. And then we'll take a bus over to Santiago so that everyone can go hug St. James. But yeah, those 2 week excursion trips are really good because they give you a good sense of the Camino, and you've walked a good 2 weeks. 12, 13, 14 days, whatever we can fit in. But you don't have to worry about taking off so much time from work or
Yeah.
missing family events or whatnot. Then when we do the longer Camino, obviously you've got to plan for that. You've got to have a month of time available to do that. And that's great as well, obviously.
That's the Europeans. They always take those very long
They get
holidays,
they
as
get
they say.
the
They
8
get
weeks
those
of
fun. Yeah.
holiday, man. The US needs to learn some things from them. So
Yeah.
they gotta
I get
they
4
gotta
weeks, so I can't complain. I'm pretty blessed with that. So yeah, 2 week would sound good for me as long as I can get this back healthy. But like I said,
yeah.
I've been walking 45 minutes a day, sometimes twice a day. I like to,
Oh, that's
my wife
great.
and I, we like to walk at night, take the dog for a walk. And it's just, there's
That's
something
all you gotta
about it.
do.
There's something about, like, we've lost that, it's, my wife and I, the kids always, of course, they want to come with us. I'm like, no, this is a time for mom and dad. Like, we decompress, talk about the day, talk about like what's going on. But we end up having like deeper conversations, like, because the kids aren't over listening to what we're talking about. But it's something about walking that are, it's in our DNA. It's how God created us, that there's something about it. Like, even when I would be walking by myself, I did the 75 hard, which was like this
Yeah. Yeah.
extreme workout thing where you got to do 45 minutes outside, 45 minutes out. And the 45 minutes outside, this is 4 years ago. So it was like snowed, like it was like -0 for like 15 days straight. And this, I'm tromping through the snow. And that was like the best time ever. It was like felt so close to God in the silence and the beauty of the snow. Even though it was freezing cold, I dressed for it. But there
Yeah.
was something
No.
about it, and like so many different prayers I would be praying, and just the way that the ideas pop into your head, like you don't know where that came from. That had to have been God. Like the way that
Oh, totally
we
the Holy Spirit,
disconnect.
right?
Yeah,
Yeah. There's a quote that it is solved by walking by St. Augustine. It's one of the t-shirt quotes that we sell on the t-shirts that we have. And everyone who goes on a Camino gets a free t-shirt, but we have them as well. And it's one of my favorite quotes. I actually have it on right now. It is solved by walking. There are so many things that when you're walking for such amount of time, whether it's 1 hour or 8 hours, when you're really in the moment and you're actually praying and you're listening to God and you're talking to God and you're just like, help me walk through this, right? Whether it's with your wife or with your best friends on the Camino or wherever it may be. When my wife came, we did the same thing. We just talked and walked, and we were talking about things that we probably wouldn't talk about normally in the car or at home, because your brain just expands, wide open when you're outdoors. And that's one of the things I love about that quote. And that's why we put it on the shirt. It is solved by walking, because it truly is. You can do so much when your mind is clear. A buddy of mine, I used to live in Virginia Beach and go to St. John's the Apostle. He would always talk about the noise between the ears. And if you can get rid of the noise between the ears, you can hear God's plan for you. And you can listen with an open heart and open mind. And that's one of the things that the Camino does, is it really just opens you up for that deeper experience in my mind.
and that's part of it. Like, I know so many people, like, a lot of times if I'm walking, I'm listening to something. I'm listening to a podcast. I'm trying
Yeah,
to
100%.
absorb it. But there's times though where I won't, and it'll just be silent. And it's like you have to have that balance of it. Like we almost feel like we're wasting time if we're just being quiet. It's like the
Oh,
same with
yeah.
prayer. Like, I could be doing so many things, or I could be learning, or I can be doing these things. We have it backwards. It's like, like in these times that we get these insights better than the best podcast you can listen to, that the Holy Spirit himself wants to reveal to you your destiny or what you want to do, or like these different things that he's trying to talk to us. But so much we cloud our lives with distractions and noise. And it's just hard to hear his voice if we never spend time in the classroom with silence, or the walk
Yeah.
with silence, or just listening to the wind blow, or listening to the birds chirp. It's like there's something about it, and that so many of us don't do that anymore. We don't even get outside. It's like most people, in front of a computer all day, or their jobs
Yeah.
inside. but they don't take that time to step away. And we see that Jesus all throughout the Gospels, he was stepping away to be by
He was always
himself, to be
stepping
in
away. Yeah,
silence. I mean, that was his go-to thing, that he modeled that for us, especially when it comes to trying to make big decisions or things that are coming up in our lives, that we need to be cognizant of taking that time to step back. And what a better way to do it, like extended period of time, like 2 weeks.
yeah,
It's a long time to sort things out, because sometimes, we have to sort things out. There's like, hey, I messed up, or
yeah.
this, hey, I'm at a crossroads literally in my life, and I don't know if I should do this or I should do this. And to join other people on this journey, it's it seems like it's such a great opportunity, and that the growth comes by the end of it. Do you like journal? Do people like journal and keep track of, like, because that's what I try to do. I use my phone. I'm like, something will hit me like a lightning bolt when I'm walking. I'm like, oh, I gotta jot that down because I'm gonna forget it. Like, it was like a key insight, that I felt
Yeah.
like the Holy Spirit was whispering to me.
Well, there is a book that I'm really keen on right now, and I get it for everybody that wants it when they come on a Camino, and it's all about the Camino memoirs, and it's little sections on the page that prompt you, and each day is different. And so, today may be like, how did you help someone? Well, even on the Camino, I'm helping someone, right? I might just give someone a glass of water, or I might give a tip to someone who I don't know if they need that extra euro or not, right? Because in Spain, it's not usually typical to give tips because of the way that their system is set up. But um, my first Camino, I wrote a lot. And I was writing continuously every day. I've learned now that, like, kind of like you, if there's something that I'm really important, I'll get into my notes on my phone and I'll be like, okay, on this day I talked about this with someone, make sure I follow up with them. Or hey, I had this great thought in my head about somebody from the church back home, or something else that, just normal life things, my neighbors or whatever, that I want to mention to them. So yeah, I take notes, but I find that when you're writing, that really is a great expression. And more people have written me back after going on a Camino with thoughts and some of the things that they were praying for. We've put some of those on our website under the memoir section. But really, people are walking for intention, and when you're walking for an intention, whether it's your own, something's going on in your own life, or somebody was walking for his grandson who almost died. When somebody is walking for something or seeking something, when they're writing, it just flows out, right? And so we had quite a few people who will get the book and they've written in it, and they'll come back and say, I don't think I've written this much in a long time, because it's just an outpouring of what's going on. But yeah, I'm kind of like you. The phone is right there. It's so easy, take a quick recording of a note, and then go back and kind of, figure out what you got to rehash on that. So yeah.
Yeah, a book that really changed my life was The Way of a Pilgrim. I don't know if you've ever read that.
I
It's
have a whole bookshelf if I could show you. There's like
yeah,
25
mine
books.
mine is upstairs. This is in the basement. But yeah, when I read that, I took up the Jesus prayer, and I've been praying it ever since. It's like, but I carry it with me, especially if I'm on those walks. It's like you can get into like a prayer walk,
Oh,
and
of
then
course.
you have to create that space for a lot of times we do all the talking, but if we don't stop and give
Gotta
God a
listen.
chance to listen, exactly.
Yeah.
So anything else that you could think of about the Camino, maybe like how you set it up, like as far as like how people would lodge, like you said, from place to place. So when
Yeah.
you have it scheduled out, like where you have reservations, or is it more like like intentional of like being somewhat spontaneous to make it?
Yeah, yeah, it's mostly planned because people don't want that
Yeah.
spontaneity of not knowing if they're gonna find a place, right? Especially in a group. Now, we have had people that have asked, they're like, "Hey, we wanna go, but we definitely wanna be where we don't plan things," and we can do that. That's not a problem. The problem right now is that the Camino is over flooded with so many pilgrims, which is a great thing because it's a great experience, like I said, but it's harder to get places reserved in the towns because there's so many more people on there, and the Camino structure, the infrastructure, can't support it all in some of these more smaller rural towns. So you do tend to do a lot more planning when we have the bigger groups. So we've got a group next year that's probably 20 or 30 people that are going, and there's no cap on the number, but it just takes more logistical planning, and so those are definitely planned locations. Normally, I'm more concerned with the starting and the end. We know we're going to end in Santiago. We know we're going to go to the cathedral. We're going to go see a lot of things and do a lot of things in the cathedral, in the city. And there's plenty of places to stay in Santiago. It's the in between that becomes kind of problematic at times. But yeah, I really love the spontaneity part, if people are up for that. But we have been tending to have everyone request that, hey, I want to know where we're staying. I want to communicate to my family where we're staying. So we do all the pre bookings, and stay a little bit of everything. We'll stay at a nice hotel like the Parador, like you see in the movie The Way, when Martin Sheen brings them to the hotel, and they're all excited because he's paying for it, all the way down to your Best Western or a dorm room. We went this past May and we stayed in a town that was an old convent that's been turned into, basically a place to stay, and it was 2 beds and a shower. And it was literally 2 beds and a shower. Like, I don't even think there was a nightstand in the room. There might have been a chair. So there's just a huge hodgepodge of array of what we're going to stay in. And I like that. I like making it more real for everyone, and then a little bit more to the classic, let's book our accommodations in a nice place. And I think that the feedback that we've gotten is everyone likes that. They like that little smitten of, like, it's okay to stay in a pension, but I wouldn't want to do it every day. Or I don't want to stay in a hotel all the time. I really want to be more rural. And so it's a hoshposh. So I think it's
That's
worked out
good.
really well. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time. If people are interested in following you on a Camino, what's the best place to get a hold of you and to get more information? Is it on Instagram or your website? Feel free to share
Either.
the best
Yeah,
way.
either. So we're just followmycamino.com, the same Instagram thing. My contact is out there. All they got to do is just submit a contact form, and I personally respond to every single one of them. We were just at the National Eucharist Congress, and we're having a big, uh, uh, live chat meeting next week. So we're always trying to make sure that everyone's informed, whether they go on a Camino or not. It's more about giving more information so that they can plan and they can decide if they want to go on a Camino later on. And so, yeah, they can go either place. Hit me up, and then I'll respond with my phone number, text messaging after I give out the number, and we'll just communicate with whatever. We do have planned Caminos for 2025 and 2026. In 2027, it's a holy year in Santiago, which they open up the holy doors, and the bishop will come through. That'll be another special year. We haven't gotten that far in terms of planning. But for 2025, I know it's a Jubilee year in Rome, but we know that there's a lot of people that are going to want to go on a Camino and then fly into Rome. So we've already booked a couple of those trips so that people can go in and see not only the Camino, but then go and experience the Jubilee for next year. And
That's
then in
cool. Yeah.
2026, it is an eclipse. So there will be a solar eclipse again over Spain, over the Camino. So that's going to be exciting time as well. So yeah, for the next 2 years, 3 years, it's going to be a great, great time to go on a Camino. Not that it's not any other time, but there's definitely an advantageousness to go on a Camino and then go somewhere else and experience something else. But yeah, just hit me up on the website, Instagram, and we'll get right in touch with people. Definitely.
One more last question. So as far as like people who are like on a budget, do you do like payment like plans where people can set it up in advance so they can pay a little bit towards it? Like say it's 2 years out into that,
Mhm.
where people can plan it out and work with people as far as that.
Yeah, we are not like any other kind of thing out there where you got to have everything paid up. Matter of fact, we only ask for a certain amount of money, just to get you to deposit in, so we can work on getting things booked and whatnot. Because I do have to send money to Spain and other places. But yeah, no, if someone needs a payment plan, I don't even care if they've already gone on the Camino and they're still paying afterwards. We will work on them. Our goal is not to make it so that somebody can't go on the Camino. Our goal is to make you go on the Camino or help you go on the Camino and make it as inexpensive as possible. And if we need to extrapolate that out for time because they're just not in that financial situation, then that's a blessing, right? That's totally a blessing to be able to do that.
Oh, that's awesome to hear. Well, thank you so much for sharing your story about the Camino and taking this as your ministry and helping people. And I'm sure lives are being changed. That's we're putting ourselves in that position, and when we walk together with Christ on a pilgrimage, we're going to grow. There's no way around that we
Yeah.
don't get closer to Jesus and to the people that you're with. I'm
And to
sure you're
each other.
making
Right.
lifelong friends at the
Yeah.
same time.
Mankind, right? We're helping everyone out. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking this time tonight. I
Oh,
will
thank you,
share all of
man.
it on all the socials and all the stuff, and hopefully I can get with my wife. I don't know if she'll be able to, but I'm definitely very interested in going myself. So
Anytime, anytime, my friend. Yeah.
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, man.